Hey there, neighbor. Ever wondered what it would be like to start your own homestead? Well, I'm gonna show you. Hi, are you free ranging? Greetings, loved ones, and welcome back to my channel. Just before I get into this kind of intro here, I just want to let you know my neighbors are getting married on their farm in a couple of weeks, and they've been doing a lot of projects to like prepare the land. And so if you hear the vehicles, I think they're doing some excavation today. So now you know what it is. Such is the way of life, living in farm country. Everybody's doing a whole lot at all times. All right, so first off, I just wanted to say hello. If you've never seen me before, my name's Megan, I'm 24. I live on an Oregon farm with my partner and our 2 dogs and our 2 hogs. And I, right now, call it a farm because it's just like the easiest, quickest way to describe what we do. But I guess it's technically more of like a homestead because we don't farm for profit, although we do farm for our family, technically. Like, we grow most of our own produce and stuff like that. And right now is totally one of our busiest times of the year. So I just kind of wanted to show you basically all of the projects we are doing, all of the projects we have yet to do on the farm, and kind of explain just the reality of farm life, I guess, because I think that this has become a common dream for people in their early 20s. They're like, you know what, city life just isn't for me. I'm just gonna go and move out to the country somewhere and mind my own business and be surrounded by trees and just live my best life, you know? And while that's a great dream, I'm not saying don't have that dream. I just want to season it with a little bit of reality of what goes into the work around a farm or a homestead or whatever you want to call it. All of the stuff that you need to do if you're going to be maintaining your land, depending on obviously how much you live on, because it is a lot of work. And while it's rewarding work, it's kind of one of those things where it's like the work never stops. The to-do list is always gonna have something on it. You're always gonna need to get something done, whether it's weeding, whether it's tending to your animals, whether it is planting more seeds to get them in to harvest between a certain amount of time, or if it's just landscaping. That's the bulk of what we do on our farm, is landscaping, because our landlady takes $150 off of our rent so that we landscape it ourselves. We live on a 5-acre parcel. It is partially wooded in the back pasture, which I'll show you in a little bit, but most of it is invasive blackberries, a handful of fruit trees, not anything too crazy like an orchard or anything. We farm on about, I would say, half an acre with just garden beds that we've either made the raised beds ourselves or shoveled out and tilled ourselves. And then, like I also mentioned before, we do have 2 pigs, but we do not farm them for meat. They're basically just our pets. So let me just kind of get into the nitty-gritty, because there are a lot of things. Oh, it's the pigs. Rue, it's okay. She's allowed to be out here. She's free-ranging, Bayshire. Ducky is scratching herself on the lawnmower right now.
Come on, girlfriend, let's go back to the pen.
She's deaf, y'all. She doesn't really care about anything. Come on.
This way. Come on. Come on.
Okay, back to what I was saying. So, one time my best friend Nevin tweeted and she said, everyone talks about wanting to do farm girl stuff until it actually comes time to do farm girl stuff. And I replied back, T, because it's just so true. Like, you have this idea of, you know, a picture perfect frolicking in the woods moment, and maybe you're baking bread in the kitchen, maybe you are living your best cottagecore fantasy, but also at the same time, like, it doesn't just come with no effort. And I think that a lot of people, especially when they see our pigs, especially when they see, you know, just the life that we live, they're like, oh my God, that's the dream, you know? And while that's totally true, and it is the dream, and I'm not gonna sit here and complain about the life I live, that's really not what I'm trying to do in this video. I'm just trying to like season your expectations. Basically what I'm trying to say is I think that people leave the shoveling shoveling pig shit out of their dream. They leave the hours and hours of being on your hands and knees in the garden weeding away out of the dream. They forget that sometimes if you want to have animals, especially if you want to rescue them and you don't want to harvest them, they do cost a lot of money. And also, if you're going to keep a farm animal as a pet, that means you need to have a mobile vet come to your farm to take care of them and pay for their vaccines and all of the things that you would do like for your dog, you know, but with your farm pets. But anyways, let me just quickly summarize how we even got here. And basically how we moved to our Oregon farm is because both my partner and I are from the East Coast. He's from the farmland of Virginia. I'm from the suburbs of Atlanta. And we met in LA and we moved up here in February of 2018. We live about 50 minutes southeast of Portland, so we're still relatively close to the city, but like it's a drive. And basically when we moved here, we first started on our homestead with no preconceived notions that we would get into farm life or homestead life. We really just wanted more land to be able to feel immersed in nature on. And then once you arrive at that land, obviously you're like, well, I want to spruce this up and make it look cute. So a lot of our initial projects when we first moved here were landscaping the outside of the property. And the first big project that I remember doing is actually digging up all of these years and years of this rock collection that the owner of this house had. The man who built this house was Irwin Cox. A couple summers ago, this man pulled down in a truck in my driveway and he got out and he was like, hello, my name's David. My grandfather built this house. I'm a cranberry farmer from Arizona. I was in the area. It's nice to meet you. Can I see the place? And I was like, this is incredible. And he told me about how his grandpa laid all of the wood that you guys see in my house. And he also was a rock collector in his spare time. He told me that the house was built around 1947-ish. And there's actually a canning cellar in our basement. And he said that when his grandpa lived here, he had that entire room filled with his rock collection. And all of the rocks that you guys see around our property that's landscaped around our beds to hold in the mulch, those are all Irwin's rocks. So it's very full circle. So that was my first big project. I got on a tangent there. And then after that, we pretty much just built garden beds with ripped apart pallets that we got for free off of the side of the road near dumpsters outside of furniture stores. We still do stuff like that. Most of the stuff that we started off with, because we obviously moved up here from Los Angeles and we're only living in studio apartments, we didn't have a lawnmower, we didn't have a weed whacker, we didn't have shovels, garden tools, mulch, you know, any of that shit we got off Craigslist. And most people give that stuff away for free if they're either downsizing, retiring, getting rid of stuff, chipping wood, and they don't have any use for it. They'll just list all that stuff. Speaking of wood chips, my dog is eating one next to me right now. But yeah, I would say when we first started landscaping and gardening, I wasn't really thinking about it in the long term of like, what is this going to turn into and how much food can I grow? Because I had no expectation of what it would be or how good we would be at it. But then on the note of Craigslist, my partner found a pig listed on Craigslist about a half a mile away from our house. And he was like, oh my God, look at this hog. Like at this time we didn't have Rue, so Finley kind of wanted a companion for Larry. And long story short, we went to our now friend Athena's farm and we found Ducky, who you guys saw waddling around the front yard. And she lived in the house for 2 days while Finley was converting the barn for her to live in. Anyways, after 2 days, once we got her set up, we went back and we got her a sister, Peach. And that's how we got our hogs. And after that, I was like, the farm life is for me. I think I mentioned this before, but we rent this property. And for our forever home, I definitely do dream of getting more animals. But right now, I'm just kind of trying to keep it just the hogs, just the dogs, because wherever we move to next, we'll have to transport all of those animals. It would be totally different for us personally if everything we were doing here was for permanent. And so that's also sometimes a frustration for us, is that we don't want to put too much love into the land because we're just gonna have to leave it when we go. But also at the same time, it's like training for our forever home, which we are still on the lookout for, by the way. I get a lot of questions about that. The housing market is insane right now. This we know, this we know. Anyways, I just kind of wanted to give you a little backstory on how we arrived here and what our future plans are. Obviously, I would love to have more of like a permaculture setup in the future, but right now we're just making do with what we have. And what we have is a beautiful 5-acre parcel, and I love it, and there's always a lot to do, and there's always a lot to harvest, and I'm gonna show you what that entails today. So my outline for this video is basically to take you to different locations and tell you what I have to do for that area, and we're gonna start where I am right now. So this is our front herb garden. This is basically where I pick oregano, sage, mint, borage, lemon balm, and other various things, either to make herbalism projects with, because I study herbalism now as well, trying to become certified, baby. And also it's just kind of like a pretty little entryway flower bed. And what I have to do for this area is maintain the mulch in it, maintain this kind of rock line of Irwin's rocks. That's what I'm gonna refer to all of the landscaping rocks as. Love a good Irwin rock. And also every now and again I come out here and I try to weed this patio pathway area. It's kind of just like a slightly landscaped area for people to be able to walk through. But my main issue with right here is that this rhododendron bush is so huge and it completely encroaches on the path. And so that's a project that I need to do, is do the big prune of that rhododendron bush. But upon pruning and doing your own landscaping, you realize that there are seasons to prune so that they come back strong the next season. Ideally, you would like to prune when something is dying back already in fall or winter, so in the spring it gets that new growth. And right now it's literally like end of spring, beginning of summer, so not really pruning season. Also, this is butterfly bush lilac. It was apparently a gift to my landlady for Mother's Day a few years ago, and when we moved here it was maybe this tall, and now it is so tall, and we literally hacked it back so hard in fall and winter of last year, and it's just insane right now. So those are the types of things that I generally just give Finley the shears and I say, go to work, brother. And then meanwhile, while he's doing that, I'm out here like on my hands and knees weeding out all of this bed, because apart from all of the stuff that we've planted in here, like the lemon balm, oregano, all of that, the mint was here to begin with. And if you guys plant mint around where you are, please pot it, plant it in a pot, because it will take over the entire garden. It's literally everywhere. So I have to weed out the mint and other kind of random weeds such as pop up every now and again. Now, speaking of landscaping, this is actually something that I did very recently, was I pruned and weeded out underneath our rose bush that's here. It's rose season right now, so it's very heavy and kind of falling over, but I tried to kind of unearth Irwin's rocks again, and I have to do this every year, find the rocks, bring them out from the grass, and lay them on top of it again, just to kind of keep that line. But something that we'll have to do today or in the coming weeks is weed whack underneath all along over here, because our weed whacker died on the day that I was tending to the rose bush and starting to landscape, so I want to finish that project. If you haven't realized yet, there's always stuff to be done. And on the landscaping note, you know, I assume that these bushes were planted for privacy in the past for our back porch, but they've gotten insane and they need to be pruned for sure. Also, Irwin's rocks. They're somewhere under there. I don't know where they are, but we need to bring the weed whacker all along under here and free up that space, brother, and do the big prune. Also, Finley's the one who does the lawn mowing, but there's a lot of grass to mow, and obviously he can't fit the lawnmower underneath our trampoline, so we have to weed whack that area as well. Now, I'm gonna show you the absolute worst part of living on land in the Pacific Northwest. And you know, you might hear me say this and be like, how could you not love a beautiful edible berry? Well, I'm gonna show you why, brothers. Without further ado, I introduce you to the invasive blackberry species of the Pacific Northwest. There are two, the Oregon trailing blackberry and the Himalayan blackberry. They have taken over our farm. Even these right here are dead. The brown ones are dead, but all behind it is basically a wall of blackberries that was here when we moved here. It encroaches on everything, every fence line, the sides of our home. They will literally eat your home if you let them. I saw a TikTok about this one time about the man who brought this type of blackberry to Oregon, and you know, he did a thing, he did. I won't say if it was good or bad, but he definitely did a thing. So also a fair amount of the landscaping we do is I send Finley out here with a machete and he just hacks away at them while wearing a big thick coat and gloves. Hey, Ducky, don't go over there. Hold on, she's gonna totally ruin my flower beds. All right, I'm back. Hello. So this area needs to be weed whacked. I just wanted to give kind of like an overview of what we have going on over here garden wise. This first bed right here doesn't really look like a bed because it's a wild flower bed this season and just kind of a volunteer bed. I didn't plant anything really directly in here other than wildflowers and sunflowers, and I'm just kind of letting it do its own thing and not really relying too heavily on weeding it out just for maximum benefit. Where is Ducky? Oh no, I'm so worried my pig is going to trample my vegetable garden. But basically, all I'm trying to say is that we always have a lot of weed whacking and weeding to do around here. This is our big artichoke plant that we planted in 2018. She's thriving. This bed back here has potatoes, garlic, peas, and fava beans. All right, I had to put my pigs back inside of the fence because they were getting a little crazy with the free ranging. Ducky specifically. She was like getting into the veggie garden. No thank you, no trampling there. Which leads me to the next project that we have to do, gating the garden. There's a bunch of piles of straw over here, by the way, because I need to rake them over the garden. Finley's just been cleaning out the old straw from the pig pen and then dumping it over here in piles. Anyways, our garden isn't gated, this big bed over here, because it's just a project I've procrastinated for a really long time. We have the chicken wiring to do it, we have the stakes to do it. I feel like it would keep my dogs out of the garden. It would keep the hogs out of the garden. It wouldn't keep the deer out because deer can jump over even taller than 6-foot fencing. At least the deer around here can. But yeah, that's just something that I really want to get done, and I'll show you why I've been putting it off in just a second. Let me bring you to the old greenhouse bed. So you can see the old wood framing around here, but we had plastic PVC pipe and plastic sheeting in this area for about a year and a half or so before we decided to just break it down and just use this like a regular garden bed last year, which was very great, and everything that was in here grew really well. We don't really use this front bed part for anything other than right now storage of some branches that fell over during the power outage that we have yet to put into our wood chipper because our wood chipper broke. So that's another project that needs to be fixed. Also, just look at this. So we did some lasagna composting with pieces of cardboard to suffocate the grass in some areas, and we didn't do it in this area, so this is all grass. Other than that, we have daisies. These are onions from last season that are now flowering and are gonna go to seed again. We have lots of onions. We have rhubarb over here, and I am not heavily planting this bed. Similar to that front bed up there where I just planted the wildflowers, I'm kind of like, maybe I should just leave it this year and let nature do its thing. Because a lot of people, especially with permaculture, do like no dig beds or no till beds. And obviously it depends on what kind of gardening style you're into. But I know that this needs to be weeded desperately, but right now I'm just leaving her. It is truly insane though, the amount of weeds, comfrey, just all of it. And last year I had a bunch of cabbage planted back here as well as broccoli, so we have some of that coming back up that I'll probably just end up feeding to the pigs, and some of it is like bolting and stuff. But we already have broccoli, cauliflower, and Brussels sprouts all planted in other areas of the garden, so I don't really mind to just feed this to the pigs. But let me talk a little bit about maintaining fence lines, because, well, this is our pallet fence to keep the pigs in. We have 2 of them, and like I said before, we just get the pallets for free outside of like furniture stores and stuff. But as you can see, the blackberries eat away at the fence lines. And our landlady put up this electric fence. We don't use it, like we don't actually charge it and electrocute our animals to keep them in, so that's why we have the pallet fence up. But in between it grows all of these invasive weeds and blackberries and all of the things. So we need to keep the fence lines kind of more clear with the weed whacker, as well as all of the outsides of the beds. We try to keep tamed down and weed all the grass out. I've done many a garden tour, and so I normally show the garden progress in vlogs. But this year, if I'm gonna do a quick summary, we have growing a lot of calendula, tomatoes, fava beans, broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, carrots, corn, squash, beets, peas, kale, and potatoes. Some of it from seed we planted, some of it we planted starts of. Now this is the broken wood chipper right here, and a little pile of cherry wood mulch that I may use around the landscaping of the house. It's up in the air. But this all is an entire season of weeds that has come up around my garlic perimeter planted bed. So I planted this garlic last spring, and some of it didn't all come up, and I used to have broccoli in here as well, so that's the broccoli right there. And then I just left it over the past few seasons, and now it's like completely covered in weeds. So this is another bed that I need to weed out, because I could have it look like this, you know, potatoes, garlic, all of the things, but alas, you know, another project to get done. This right here is where we dump all of our like garden weeds and landscaping weeds. And now we have the area in front of our compost. So this is our compost pile. It's actually in a box of wood pallets that have chicken wiring in them, and it just composts down, and then it sprouts out potatoes. It has vines growing all over it. Everything in this area, as you can see, is very green and gorgeous and luscious, but it all needs to be weeded, weed whacked, pruned back. This is like a honeysuckle bush that's eating this other plant right here. And you guessed it, Irwin's rocks are somewhere around here, because there was a line at one point of rocks that went all the way around this bed, but now it's just so absurd and insane that it's almost like a tent of weeds. It's an entire shelter of weeds. So I would say that landscaping is my biggest woe on the farm. Hi, Rue. Over here we have a mushroom bed that Finley planted that has a volunteer potato growing out of it. But these are all old mycelium mushroom bags that Finley took the plastic off of and then made this kind of like just little rectangle and filled it with soil so that things could grow in here. And these have actually been producing more mushrooms since it is raining on them and we water the bed and stuff like that. But normally we just plant potatoes back here, so that's why there's volunteers from other seasons. That's a trampled potato from the pigs. Now we have these two wisteria bushes that were planted here obviously before we moved in, and we weed whack them and prune them, but now we need to rake away all of the dead stuff underneath and put it in that, you know, lawn clipping compost pile area. This is a tiny house that Finley built that he uses as like a mycology lab now, and so that's just there. I just wanted to mention it in case you guys are wondering what that building is. And then this pathway has also been weed whacked around it recently, but needs to be like cleared. On a less rainy day, I would kind of wipe it down with a big broom so that there's less stuff all over it. Now, for the next project that I was telling you about with the chicken wiring. So I think that one of the tenants who lived here in the past had chickens, had them in the barn right here, and then they had their chickens use this kind of fenced in area as like their grazing pasture. And because we never got chickens, we never used that coop. I don't want to get more farm animals because we would have to transport them elsewhere. And we already know how hard that was during the fire evacuations. Anyways, now we have all of these ferns growing in this space, but all of this is good chicken wiring. And these are good stakes. So I kind of want to rip up all of this and use it to gate the garden in. I think that that would be a good project. It would be tedious getting all of this grass out of it all and ripping out the blackberries and stuff. But we could just use those big green stakes because we do actually have more chicken wiring somewhere else. Also, this gutter fell off of our barn a few months ago. Told my landlady about it. She said the whole roof of the barn needs to be replaced, and I said, "You're telling me." But it's an old house, you know, and when that guy David came here who said that his grandpa built this house, he said that the only thing that he used the barn for when his grandpa lived here was for wood storage. And while we do store lumber in here for projects and stuff like that Finley does, whether it's renovation or working on other people's houses or building barns or building the pig house or whatever, all of that kind of stuff is in here, but also 3+ years worth of just old projects forgotten about are also in here. And this is our biggest and most long-term project to do. Look how cluttered it is. It's just astonishing. And this isn't an easy project in the way of like, you know, we just spend one day cleaning it out and then it's over. It's like, no, this would be multiple days. Multiple people would have to help us. So friends, if you're ever wanting to get your hands dirty, please hit me up and you can come help me clean out our barn. But also, it's like, what do you do with all of this stuff once you clean it out of your barn? You gotta list it on Craigslist or take it to the junkyard. And we have a lot of stuff that we need to take to the junkyard or to the scrap metal yard to try to get money for. We have old lawnmowers, old washing machines, old stuff that we've gotten off of Craigslist that has just found its way into this dirty ass barn. And this is honestly the biggest epitome of farm life in general. Every single farm I go to, their barn is cluttered, crazy, but ours, yeah, it's next level. Just a little overview for you. This is what I'm talking about. Wood from past projects. We have like engine oil stuff. We have the old water reservoir that we used for the pigs. We have broken hoses, scrap metal, pieces of concrete, all of these old mycelium buckets that we used to fruit oyster mushrooms out of. We have an old motorcycle that broke that Finley's trying to work on with one of our friends who loves a good engine project. We also have lots of old boxes that we've brought in apples with for the pigs or to press cider with. Speaking of cider, we have all of these carboys because when Finley got a bunch of glass carboys off of Craigslist, he also got all these plastic ones. Also, what I'm tripping over right now is all of these pieces of wood that have been cut for past projects that are just too small to like do anything with. So now when we have bonfires, we just burn them. We have our cider grinder and press. We have all of the greenhouse PVC pipe, 2 broken lawnmowers, a bunch of chicken wiring, tomato gates, broken down framing from the greenhouse as well. What the hell else is in here? More pallets in case we need them, an old hose that's broken, and there's also the old chicken coop in here. I wouldn't really put chickens in here, also just because the barn roof really needs replacing, and everything in here, as you can see, there's holes everywhere. Rotted out ceiling. There's a loft up here, but it's literally entirely rotted and filled with bird shit as well, so it's not really like a pleasant space to spend your time. And then we have like a broken tiller, all of these big garbage cans that we fill with feed, you know, an old weed whacker that we need to get rid of, and then we have the pig pen that Finley is currently mucking out and cleaning up all of the space underneath the mats that they eat on. This pile right here is our compost pile of just pig poop, old straw, all of it that composts down, and Finley's currently adding to that right now. This is our well pump house, and it has so many blackberries over the top that have already been trampled down, but it constantly needs more trampling down. And let me just show you the back pasture and talk about it really quickly. Also, this is like our fire pit burn pile area, so we have other big branches that we chainsaw in half to burn when we do have fires. So this is our back pasture, and it may look like a green frolicking field, but in between everything is blackberry vines galore. And when we first moved here, it looked like a big pleasant field, but after a while all of these blackberries, it doesn't take them very long to get very tall. So it was completely overtaken by blackberry vines. And then we had somebody come and use their tractor basically to plow the entire back area down. And now it needs to happen again. And I am gonna put you down to explain the hillbilly way that we're gonna do it once I get back to our fort in the forest. So this is what I meant when I said that a little bit of back here is forested. So back here, I'll show you where the property line goes to. I'm just trying to stay on the lookout for snakes and other tiny animals. I think you can kind of see, but there's some fence posts right here behind this line of trees. It doesn't go back too crazy far, but this is where our 5 acres kind of ends. Before, all back here is just private owned logging land. And this is our little makeshift fort that our friend Annalie built with us. The fort also needs a little upkeep work. Some of the walls are falling in. But basically what we have to do to keep all of those blackberries down in the back pasture now, because we don't have a big tractor, we have an electric lawnmower, which can only take so much beating. It's fine when it cuts grass, but cutting through big, thick blackberry vines is something else. So basically what our neighbor John told us to do is get in our big farm truck, the Toyota Tundra, and we attach to the ball hitch on the back a piece of chain, and then it's attached to a chain link fence, weighed down by, you know those basketball hoop stands? It's like a big black plastic thing that are oftentimes filled with water to weigh down your basketball hoop. So he brought over one of those to lay on top of the chain link fencing. So the chain link fencing rips it up while the basketball hoop stand weighs it down so that it doesn't fly up from the back of the truck. And then Finley just drives his truck throughout the back pasture just to keep everything down. So we have to do that hillbilly method again. Hello there. Since the last time I spoke to you, I spread the straw that Finley mucked out of the pig's pen over the entire garden on that first day that I was filming. I feel like I've changed outfits probably 2 times or 3 times in this video. So just know it was filmed over the course of a few days because the rain has been putting a stop to some of my filming and especially some of my outdoor projects that I've been wanting to get done. But that's okay. What I'm doing now is harvesting calendula buds to dry them, and because we have so much calendula in the garden this year, I snip off all of the buds when I see them to encourage more and more and more growth, because I low-key want to turn into a calendula farm. I love this plant, it's very medicinal and great, and I use it a lot. So that's what I'm doing right now. The garden is looking really good because there's a lot of rain that we've been getting recently, but it is about to get into the high 80s to 90s in the next few weeks. So I'm getting all of the sprinklers set up so that we can supplement obviously with the sprinklers when we don't have as much rain. And right now, because Finley mucked out all of the straw in the pig's pen, he's replacing it with something called hog fuel, which is basically like wood chips that are more kind of like wood shavings, I would say, and they really like it. So we're doing all hog fuel in their pen now instead of putting in more straw, because the straw, especially with so much moisture here that we get, it's like it kind of gets just weird and gross, while the hog fuel stays like sturdy and kind of absorbs it and then dries on the top faster. And I think that they prefer it that way to sleep in, and in the other parts of their pen that have hog fuel in it, they spend more time there. So I'll show you that in a little bit. After I harvest all of these buds, I'm just gonna take them inside and soak them in water for a few hours to get off all of the tiny little black buds, and then I lay them out on either just like old window screens or put them in the dehydrator to dry for a few hours. But here's a little quick overview of the garden. It's looking so nice and luscious right now. A lot of our fava beans are producing little flowers, and I cannot wait to eat them. Would you girls like some delicious lettuce? Delicious lettuce. Nice. Yum. Finley is adding in the hog fuel to their pen right now and unloading it from the farm truck. So that's what's happening behind me, if you're wondering what the noise is. Okay, while the girls are eating, I wanted to talk a little bit about what we have to do for upkeep with the hogs. We have to trim their hoofs down with kind of like garden shear things a couple times a year when we notice them getting kind of too long. We also have to have the mobile vet come visit to give them vaccinations sometimes. They'll get like deworming stuff, and they'll get their poop samples taken just to make sure that they don't have anything going on inside. And about once a year I do a big wash of them, because pigs actually, even though they love to roll around in the mud, they're very clean farm animals. They don't like shit where they eat. They don't really get too muddy, but they do get kind of like flaky skin from either just like too much sun or dry spots from where they blow their coat, also just depending on the breed. These are Kune Juliana mixes, we're pretty sure. Their dad was a purebred Kune, and then their mom was kind of like up in the air. So that's why Ducky has those wattles on her neck, those little kind of fat sacs that people always ask about. And Peach actually lost a wattle last year during evacuation. We don't know when, we don't know where it went. And then the second wattle fell off like 2 weeks after that. And she seemed fine. They're really, really tough animals. Like when they get shots from the vet and stuff like that, they barely even flinch. They don't really care. They're very tough girls, and they fight a lot over food mainly, not because they don't like each other. Oh no, I told you that's empty. It's an empty bowl, Peach. You don't need to wear it on your head. But as for feed for them, we probably spend around $125 for 4 separate 50-pound bags of food. They eat black oil, sunflower seeds, sow pellets, alfalfa hay pellets, and rolled oats. And all of that together is around $125. But we don't buy it very often. And when we do buy it, we get a lot of them and then put them in those metal tins in the barn that I showed you. So I would say around $125, maybe like 3 times a year, especially right now when we have like lettuce to give them and scraps from the kitchen to give them. They mostly just graze down this pasture, and then we rotate them to that pasture, and then they'll have just like dry feed in the summertime, because when we add the moisture to their feed sometimes in the summer it's too humid and it gets moldy. P-U-R-U, right? Really gross. So right now they're having dry feed, which I'll go show you. This is what the hog fuel looks like, by the way. They're gonna have a really totally wicked time in here. We've been trying to make sure that their feed mats that we normally feed them in here are kind of clear of stuff. Peach sees me in here, she thinks I'm gonna feed her. No, I literally just fed you. They're always hungry. Fun fact about pigs. No, you can't come in here. Dad's working on a project for you. This is just some dry feed that I made the other day. I have this coconut oil out here because I use it on their coats sometimes with a little dry brush that I have right there. But we keep all of their bulk feed in here to make this. And then when these get empty, we refill them with these tins over here. Are you really as hungry as this? Because I don't believe you. And then we just have a hose system hooked up right here to refill their water saucer. Wow, hogs on the loose. Can't you see that Dad's trying to do something really nice for you? And you actually weren't allowed in here just so you didn't ruin everything. But let's see their first reaction to their new hog fuel. Do you like it, Ducky? Do you like it? Oh no, I think she actually left. Girls, can you just stick around today? Like not go to the front yard or anything? Yeah, pretty awesome in here, huh? Well, I would say in conclusion, I feel like I've showed you everything around the farm, at least landscaping wise, gardening wise, that we have to tend to, as well as like for the animals and stuff. And really the only other project that I have on my list that I want to get done is power washing this truck, like renting a power washer, because we don't own one, to get off all of the gunk, because right now it's just a lawn ornament. because it hasn't been running since December of 2019. And my friend Adam likes to work on engines, and he said that he would take this project on and try to get it running with me, because I think it's just a head gasket issue, from what I've understood from talking to people who know about cars. But at the end of the day, this is just a pleasure vehicle, because we already have like an everyday driver, which is our Lexus, and then we have the farm truck that's Finley's, and we don't really need another truck. But I just bought it because like I wanted to buy my own car, and she's so beautiful and I just love her so much. It's a 91 Dodge Power Ram 250, and it has a 360 engine, and she's gorgeous, but she just needs a little bit of work, you know? And so that's not like high on my priority list, because again, I could just like make this a lawn ornament, plant flowers in the bed of the truck, and have a totally wicked time just looking at it. But either way, she'll either need to be driven to our forever home that we moved to, or towed to there. So really, whatever I end up doing with it, I need to consider those two options. But that's really the last project on my list, other than cleaning out our basement. It's just as messy as the barn. And alas, I think that that's the end of this video. I've really showed you everything. Finley mowed the lawn again today. I pruned the front path entrance to our house today as well, just so the rhododendron bush doesn't like grow over the staircase, because it will. And now that the pigs have a mucked out pen, they're good and happy. The dogs are just prancing around the yard with me, helping in the garden and living their best life, and they're happy and we're happy, and you know, we're just busy. That's the whole thing I'm trying to say with this video is, you move to land, you're always busy, brother. So I guess it just depends on how much you live on, but wherever you want to move to, if you have a dream of moving to land, you're gonna need to put in a little work every now and again to maintain it. And you know, it's very rewarding when it looks very nice and you're like, yes, I landscaped this. Looks great. So I'm just aiming for more days feeling like that, rather than feeling overwhelmed by everything on the to-do list, because you just gotta bite off a little bit at a time and then add more onto the to-do list as you go, but not really start off with an overwhelming amount, because that's the story of my life. And this is all on top of streaming 3 times a week on Twitch, maintaining uploads on here at least weekly, studying herbalism on the side, as well as keeping a clean inside of our farmhouse, and just like maintaining a social life and living it up, you know? It can get a little bit, whoa, in the head. But at the end of the day, I'm happy, living life, grateful. So happy to have moved to Oregon in the first place. It's a great place to be. So just kind of wanted to show you the beauty of our homestead, brothers, because I've never done really like a full tour of the land and like a chore tour, you know, of what we need to do to maintain the way that we live. So that's it. Thanks for watching. I hope you learned something from this video. If you didn't know, I stream on Twitch at twitch.tv/Meghan Hughes. I also have a Patreon page if you want to see more content from me. I upload a ton over there on patreon.com/Meghan Hughes. And yep, I think that's it, y'all. I think that's the end of this video, y'all. I was trying to make that more graceful. And you know, I'll just see you in the next one. Stay smiling. Bye, y'all.